On March 12th at 2 a.m., Ashley Smith pulled into her apartment complex. She was a widowed single mother, battling addiction, just trying to survive another day. But as she walked to her door, she heard footsteps behind her. A man pressed a gun to her back and forced his way inside her home. He was exhausted, desperate, and armed to the teeth. When he took off his hat, she recognized his face from the news. She was now the hostage of Brian Nichols, the most wanted man in America. And what she did over the next 7 hours would either be the end of her life or the beginning of a miracle. But how did this man, who was supposed to be securely locked away, find himself in a random woman's apartment after leaving a trail of bodies in his wake? The answer begins in a place that's meant to be the safest in the city, a court of law. On March 11, 2005, started as a normal day at the Fulton County Courthouse in downtown Atlanta. Inside, 33-year-old Brian Nichols was preparing for the 4th day of his trial. The charges were serious: rape, kidnapping, and assault against a former girlfriend. The evidence was piling up, and a conviction seemed almost certain. Nichols was a former college football player, standing 6'4" and weighing over 200 pounds. He was intelligent, but known for having a knack for trouble. During the trial, jurors later said he made them nervous. He would just stare. Every time he looked up, his eyes would lock onto a juror, cold and unblinking. It was clear he felt cornered, and he had no intention of spending his life in a cage. In fact, days earlier, police found 2 Shanks homemade knives hidden in his shoes. It was a sign of what was to come. That morning, as a 51-year-old female deputy, Cynthia Hall, escorted him to a holding cell to change into his court clothes, Nichols made his move. He lunged at the deputy, who was half his size and nearly twice his age. He viciously beat her, stole her Glock pistol, and left her in a coma. Now armed and wearing civilian clothes, Brian Nichols was no longer a prisoner. He was a predator loose inside the halls of justice. Nichols moved with terrifying purpose. He made his way to the 8th floor, towards the chambers of the very man presiding over his trial, Superior Court Judge Roland Barnes. He stormed into the judge's personal office, but the judge wasn't there. He had already entered the courtroom. Nichols followed. He slipped through the unlocked private door that connected the judge's chambers to the courtroom. Emerging from behind the judge's bench, the room was full. Lawyers, clerks, and citizens were present for routine civil matters. No one understood what was happening until it was too late. Nichols raised the stolen gun and opened fire. He shot and killed Judge Roland Barnes, the man who held his fate in his hands. Then, he turned the gun on 64-year-old court reporter Julie Brandow, killing her as she sat at her desk. Pandemonium erupted. An alarm was pulled, but in the chaos, Nichols was already moving. He was now a double murderer, and he was just getting started. He had to get out of the building, and anyone who stood in his way would pay the price. And that's exactly what happened when he encountered Sergeant Hoyt Teasley. Sergeant Teasley was a Fulton County deputy who heard the commotion and ran towards the danger. He confronted Nichols as he tried to flee the courthouse. Teasley didn't hesitate to do his duty, but Nichols was ruthless. He shot and killed the sergeant, then burst out onto the streets of Atlanta. A city was about to be plunged into terror. Downtown Atlanta went into immediate lockdown. Police sirens echoed through the streets as a massive manhunt began. Nichols, a man with nothing left to lose, was a ghost. He carjacked multiple vehicles, pistol whipping a journalist in a parking garage and stealing his car. The entire city was on edge. News channels broadcast his face on a loop. A reward of $65,000 was announced. For hours, he seemed to vanish. But later that day, he resurfaced in the upscale neighborhood of Buckhead. He found a house under construction and broke in, desperate for a place to hide. But the house wasn't empty. The owner, David Wilhelm, an off-duty federal ICE agent, was there. A struggle ensued, and Nichols, remorseless, shot and killed his 4th victim. He stole Wilhelm's badge, gun, and pickup truck, and once again, disappeared into the night. 4 people dead, a city paralyzed with fear. The question on everyone's mind was, where would he strike next? That's when he ended up in Duluth, a suburb just outside Atlanta. He spotted a young woman returning home from a late-night trip to the store. Ashley Smith. Ashley was at a low point in her life. Her husband had been tragically murdered years earlier, and she'd turned to drugs to cope, losing custody of her young daughter in the process. When Nichols forced his way into her apartment, she was terrified. She instantly recognized him and knew cooperating was her only chance to survive. He tied her up, but as the hours dragged on, something strange happened. They started talking. He told her he felt like he was already dead. She told him about her own struggles, about losing her husband, about her daughter. Nichols asked her if she had any marijuana. She said no. But she did have methamphetamine. He told her to prepare it. At that moment, Ashley faced a choice that would define the rest of her life and his. What she did next is what makes this story so unbelievable. Instead of partaking, she told him she never wanted to use drugs again. She wanted to live for her daughter. Looking for something to connect with him, she asked if she could read to him. He agreed. She picked up a book she had been reading, Rick Warren's The Purpose-Driven Life. She read a chapter about finding your purpose, about surrendering to a higher power. He asked her to read it again. They talked about God, about family, about regret. He told her he felt lost and that God must have led him to her. She told him he wasn't born a killer. As dawn approached, she made him pancakes for breakfast. A strange sense of calm had settled in the apartment. He then looked at her and asked what time she needed to leave to go see her daughter. She told him now would be the best time. Incredibly, he untied her, gave her back her cell phone, and let her walk out the door. Ashley got in her car, her knees shaking, and immediately called 911. Within minutes, SWAT teams had surrounded her apartment building. The largest manhunt in Georgia's history was over. Brian Nichols, the man who had murdered 4 people and terrorized a city, waved a white cloth from the window and surrendered without a fight. His 26-hour reign of terror had been ended not by a hail of bullets, but by a conversation over pancakes and a chapter from a book. Brian Nichols was indicted on 54 counts, including murder, kidnapping, and armed robbery. The prosecution sought the death penalty. However, after a long and expensive trial, the jury couldn't reach a unanimous decision on his sentence. Instead of death, Brian Nichols was sentenced to multiple life sentences without the possibility of parole. He will spend the rest of his natural life behind bars at the Georgia Diagnostic and Classification State Prison, the state's most secure facility. Ashley Smith received the reward money and wrote a book about her ordeal called Unlikely Angel. She used the experience to turn her life around, stay sober, and regain custody of her daughter. She showed the world that even in the darkest of moments, a flicker of hope and humanity can change everything. The case of Brian Nichols is a chilling reminder of how quickly a system designed to protect us can be broken. But it's also a story of unexpected courage and connection in the face of pure terror. What do you think? Do you believe Ashley's conversation truly changed him? Or was he just exhausted and looking for a way out? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you found this story compelling, please hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into fascinating cases. Thanks for watching.